Have you ever felt like you're drowning in a sea of information, yet somehow still not quite well informed about what truly matters?
Hmm.
Or maybe the world around us feels so complex it's hard to grasp how society actually works or how your own voice can genuinely make a difference.
Yeah, the feeling of being overwhelmed is pretty common, I think.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into the enduring wisdom of a figure once hailed as the guide, the mentor, and the conscience of the American people.
We're talking about John Dewey, an incredibly influential philosopher, public intellectual. His key work here, The Public and Its Problems, first out in 1927, then reissued in 46.
And it's still relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It offers these profound meditations on democracy's future, and it grappled with the very things we're still wrestling with: mass communication, bureaucracy, social complexity, pluralism.
So our mission today is to really unpack Dewey's core insights. What did he mean by the public and the state?
Right, and how did modern life kind of reshape those concepts for him?
Exactly, and why his ideas are still so useful for understanding the challenges and maybe the opportunities for democracy right now.
Okay.
So let's start with the man himself. Who was John Dewey?
Well, born Vermont, 1859, Johns Hopkins grad, he became this, well, towering figure. Not just philosophy, but a real public intellectual.
Influencing fields like education.
Progressive education, yeah. Ethics, democracy. He really studied the greats, Locke, Rousseau, Jefferson, Emerson, Mill.
And he was trying to reimagine politics for America.
He was. And it's true, you really can't open a book on democratic theory today without bumping into Dewey. His themes just resonate.
What was core for him about modern democracy?
Well, things like equality before the law, obviously, but also this shared identity between the rulers and the ruled, the idea that the people are the source of authority.
Right.
And crucially, he saw this constitution of the people not as something fixed, but as something that results from politics. It's dynamic.
Now, he was quite critical of what he called classical liberalism, wasn't he?
Yes, very much so. Classical liberalism, thinkers like Locke, Adam Smith, later Hayek, they valued liberty, private property, limiting the state, all important things.
Sure.
But Dewey felt their approach was based on what he called atomistic psychology, like seeing individuals as these separate, isolated units.
Ah, okay.
And he argued this sort of narrow understanding of individuality actually undermined the community aspect, the communal side of democracy.
So he was looking for a different kind of liberalism, something more collective.
Precisely. He sided more with what L.T. Hobhouse termed new liberalism or modern liberalism. This tradition saw a bigger role for the state.
How so?
In removing inhumane conditions, underwriting a welfare state. Thinkers like John Stuart Mill, T.H. Green, Du Bois, even later John Rawls fit in here. For Dewey, intelligence itself wasn't just a private thing. It's a social asset. Its function is public because its origin is in social cooperation, how we think and solve problems together.
That's a really fundamental difference. It sounds like democracy for Dewey was way more than just, voting booths and laws.
Oh, absolutely. Much more. It implied a whole public culture or ethos.
Yeah.
A bit like the ancient Greeks understood it.
Extending into
Matters of the mind, heart, and spirit. He famously said that getting rid of the habit of seeing democracy as just institutional, just external,
Yeah.
and acquiring the habit of treating it as a way of personal life, that's when you realize democracy is a moral ideal.
A moral ideal.
And that ideal is really at the heart of the public and its problems.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, I think. This book wasn't written in a vacuum. It was part of a debate, right?
Yeah.
Specifically with Walter Lippmann.
Exactly. A direct response.
Yeah.
They were both grappling with this sense of a crisis of democracy in the 1920s.
What was Lippmann's take?
Well, Lippmann had articulated these psychological anxieties of the age back in 1914.
Yeah.
He wrote this striking line, something like, "The iconoclasts didn't free us. They threw us into the water, and now we have to swim."
Wow. So his view was that the public was kind of set free, but maybe wasn't ready for it, ill-equipped.
That's basically it. Lippmann argued people rely heavily on stereotypes, these sort of value-laden conjectures about the world.
Preconceptions.
Yeah, exactly. He thought, in complex industrial societies, people are asked to have opinions on things they have zero direct experience with.
And his WWI experience played into this.
It did. He'd been on the Committee on Public Information, saw how susceptible people were to propaganda, to manipulation. He noted how stereotypes are loaded with preference, tied to fears, hopes, dislikes.
So our feelings get in the way of clear thinking.
That was Lippmann's concern.
Yeah.
And it led him towards a more well, some call it an elitist vision of democracy.
Elitist how?
He basically argued the public doesn't really choose policies or candidates. They just line up for or against somebody who has offered himself. Lippmann himself said it was an impossible task to be truly informed on everything. So for him, the key was experts.
Experts to guide things.
Experts to give shape to the problems. Problems that citizens and even politicians only dimly perceive. They create a kind of intellectual authority that frames the whole debate.
Okay, that's a really strong critique of mass democracy. So how did Dewey respond? How did he push back against that?
Well, Dewey acknowledged Lippmann's points about stereotypes and the public's lack of knowledge. He agreed citizens aren't omnicompetent. Nobody knows everything.
Right.
But he strongly disagreed with Lippmann's solution, particularly to focus on educating officials over the public and this idea that experts don't really need public input.
And he had that famous line.
Yes. No government by experts in which the masses do not have the chance to inform the experts. And the analogy, the man who wears the shoe knows best that it pinches and where it pinches.
Even if the expert shoemaker is the best judge of how the trouble is to be remedied, that's brilliant.
It really captures his point, doesn't it?
It does. So for Dewey, expertise is technical skill, like fixing the shoe.
Exactly. Fixing it. But the problem itself, the pinching, originates with the public's experience.
So the public defines the problem.
Their problems create the framework. Experts discover and share the facts needed. But it requires this deliberative exchange among citizens to even figure out what the problems are.
And without that input.
Decisions made without that continuous input, public hearings, town halls, whatever, they lack legitimacy. They're suspect.
Okay, so Dewey isn't abandoning the public. He's trying to redefine the public and maybe the state, too. How did his idea of the state change over time?
It did evolve. Early on, back in 1888, he had this more organic view, like the state was a body and conflict naturally led to unity. But he moved away from that. He realized conflict between different groups and claims is pretty persistent. It doesn't just magically resolve.
Especially after his time in China.
Yeah, during his lectures there, he started describing the state more as an adjudicator, something that manages these conflicting interests.
So what's the key distinction he makes about the public itself? You mentioned a public versus a public.
Right, that's crucial. A public refers to any group that experiences the indirect consequences of some transaction or action, consequences that need systematic care. So there can be many publics.
Okay, like people affected by pollution from a factory, maybe?
Exactly. They form a public around that shared consequence. Then the public is the organization of all these specific publics into a state structure.
So the state organizes these groups
through officials who act as trustees to protect the shared interests of the members of the public.
So the state isn't some mystical thing, but a tool, an organization.
Precisely. He totally rejected looking for the state's origin in God, reason, will, all that metaphysical stuff. He thought people were looking in the wrong place by seeking its authorship. Instead, the public acts like a sensory network. It detects emerging problems, and the state institutions are there to manage them. It's practical, instrumental.
Where does the radical character of democracy fit in here?
Well, Dewey recognized that sometimes the existing state institutions might actually be hostile to new needs or emerging publics.
Like the example he used.
Yeah, the entrenched power of, say, white males resisting demands from women or Black Americans for equality and recognition. The state machinery itself could be the obstacle.
So what do those excluded groups do?
They have to build power externally, outside the official channels, create a counterweight to the entrenched powers using the state. That, for Dewey, is democracy's radical potential, its ability to challenge and remake power structures from the ground up.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Dewey was also deeply concerned about the impact of technology, the machine age. He talked about a great society versus a great community. What's the distinction there?
Right. This was huge for him. Steam, electricity, railways, telegraph, mass production. These created a new era of human relations.
Connected everyone.
Connected everyone, yes. Created these vast impersonal organizations, a great society. But the problem was this connection didn't automatically create shared experience or understanding needed for democratic governance. As he put it, the great society created by steam and electricity may be a society, but it is no community. Just because we're linked doesn't mean we understand each other or share values.
And what did this mean for the average person trying to participate?
It meant being overwhelmed. The sheer complexity of modern issues. He mentions tariffs with infinite detail, technical debates about power plants.
Yeah.
It was just too much for the average voter.
So they just check out.
Yeah, they give it up as a bad job,
Mm.
which leads to lower voting, apathy, even contempt for the state. People started thinking, what difference does my vote make anyway?
That sounds depressingly familiar.
Doesn't it? And he saw other things pulling people away too.
Like what?
Amusements. The increase in the number, variety, and cheapness of amusements. Movies, radio, cheap books, cars. Powerful diversions, he called them.
Yeah.
He worried that the political elements in us, the citizenship part, gets crowded to one side.
So technology connects us physically, but maybe distracts us mentally from civic life.
That was his concern. And it also broke down older forms of community.
How so?
The machine age led to mobile and fluctuating associations. Families disintegrated, people moved from rural areas to cities.
Constant change.
Constant flux.
Mm-hmm.
The public literally does not stay in place. It becomes hard for it to even locate and identify itself.
So the paradox is, we have all these amazing tools for communication.
As never before, he says. But the thoughts and aspirations congruous with them are not communicated, and hence are not common. We have the means, but not the shared meaning.
And without that shared meaning,
The public will remain shadowy and formless. Till the great society is converted into a great community, the public will remain in eclipse.
the public in eclipse, that's a powerful image.
Yeah.
So if the public is overshadowed, how did Dewey suggest we get it back? How do we move towards that great community?
His answer, fundamentally, was communication. Communication can alone create a great community.
But not just any communication.
No. Knowledge isn't private. It has to be published, shared, socially accessible. He actually equated the formation of public opinion with the communication of the results of social inquiry.
Social inquiry, like finding out facts.
Yes, but more than just facts. It's about understanding the consequences of our actions together. He argued a real democratically organized public needs a new kind of knowledge and insight that, frankly, does not yet exist.
How do we get that?
It demands freedom of social inquiry and of distribution of its conclusions, open investigation, and open sharing of what we learn.
That links back to his idea about policies as experiments, doesn't it?
Exactly. Treat policies like working hypotheses. We try something, we carefully watch the consequences, and we stay flexible, ready to revise based on what we observe.
So social problem solving is like collective learning.
He called it collective artistry. It's creative, it's ongoing, it requires collaboration.
It's interesting, though, for all this focus on inquiry and communication, he still brings it back to the local level.
He does. He insisted that in its deepest and richest sense, a community must always remain a matter of face-to-face intercourse.
Why face-to-face?
Because families, neighborhoods, these are the chief agencies of nurture. That's where character is formed, where we learn to relate to each other directly. The bigger great community has to support and enrich these smaller local associations. It can't replace them.
So the macro depends on the micro.
In a crucial way, yes. We need both the broad connections and the deep local roots.
What's really striking here is Dewey's view of democracy itself as fundamentally unfinished, always evolving.
Absolutely. He said the state must always be rediscovered. There's no a priori rule, no single perfect blueprint for the state because conditions always change.
So the goal isn't to find the perfect system.
No, the goal of political science and philosophy should be to help create methods for intelligent experimentation so we can learn from mistakes, build on successes, adapt more effectively.
And clinging to old ideas is dangerous.
He warned that belief in political fixity is a huge stumbling block to necessary change. Democracy, for Dewey, is change. It's process.
And he even reinterpreted those classic democratic ideals, liberty, equality, fraternity, through this communal lens.
He did. They weren't just individual possessions you have in isolation. They are fruits of the community.
So equality wasn't just equal rights.
It was an unhampered share in the results of working together, measured by need and capacity, a fair chance to contribute and benefit.
Then liberty.
Liberty was the secure release and fulfillment of personal potentialities, but something that happens through rich and manifold association with others, freedom with others, not just from them.
And fraternity.
That was the consciously appreciated goods that come from belonging to an association where everyone shares in the benefits, that sense of shared well-being.
Okay. We've really covered a lot of ground here. A deep dive into Dewey's profound, sometimes challenging ideas on democracy, the public, the state.
Yeah, looking at his context, that fascinating debate with Lippmann.
Right. And diagnosing that eclipse of the public in the machine age, seeing how the great society didn't automatically mean a great community.
But he didn't leave us there. He offered this path forward through better communication, through constant social inquiry, and crucially, through valuing those local face-to-face connections.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening right now, as a learner, as someone participating in this complex world? If Dewey is right, if the state must always be rediscovered,
Hmm.
how do we, in our own lives, our own communities, actually cultivate that subtle, delicate, vivid, and responsive art of communication he talked about? How do we turn this modern babble of information into real, shared understanding, into a thriving community?
Yeah, the challenge really does remain, doesn't it? How do we make sure that the person wearing the shoe, all of us, really can effectively let the shoemaker know where it pinches? How do we ensure knowledge truly serves collective flourishing, not just abstract goals or expert opinions? That's the question Dewey leaves us with.